What is truly the best attraction in Animal Kingdom? Birds are screaming at me. Yes, it's really me. Sage Starkey, it's me. Yep, I'm ranking all 12 of them. Stick around so you know what to prioritize on your next Disney World trip. And heads up, this is gonna be a doozy. I myself am shocked. I'm shocked. So we're gonna attempt to do this scientifically and objectively, breaking it down with a couple different categories: theming and experience, ride system and tech, nostalgia and popularity, accessibility, and must-do-ness. That's a new word that we have created here at AllEars. It just means should you really do this? Like, is this on your must-do list? Each attraction is scored 1 to 5 in each category for a total potential score of 25. 1 being no, like definitely no, and 5 being yes, always, forever and ever. Starting with number 12, Kali River Rapids. Ooh. On Kali River Rapids, you travel through turbulent jungle rivers on this raft ride where you will get soaked. But watch out for the deforestation because it is real in Asia. Let's start with the theming. It's another tourism destination. Like you're supposed to feel like you're taking an excursion, right? You're here in Asia and you're taking an excursion through a rainforest in Asia. However, your excursion is being threatened by illegal logging. Deforestation is real. There's trucks, like semi-trucks and logs that are fallen over because they do try and throw in a little bit of a tourism theme and the logging, and does what Animal Kingdom is supposed to be doing, and it's supposed to be teaching us about this is happening in Asia, it's not good, how can we help? As far as overall experience, it happens so quickly and it's just so medium, just based on length and thrill, right? Not my own opinion. So we're gonna go middle of the road. We'll go 3 for that. Now with ride vehicle and tech, the ride vehicle you're sitting in is your typical raft ride experience. It's a big circle. You're all facing each other. That way it can kind of spin and kind of go with the way of the water, whichever way the water is pushing or turning you. You never know who's gonna be backwards or facing forward or facing the side. You never know. Which that'll give you some points for sure. But other than that, there's not really any tech. There's some light mist because you're in a rainforest, some light fog because of the deforestation, and a little bit of flames here and there, but truly nothing crazy other than the actual ride system itself. So for those reasons, I'm gonna give it a 2. Now, and here we go, the hits keep on coming. This is not nostalgic at all. It's not tied to any IP. It's also not a super popular ride because one, people don't want to get wet, get absolutely soaked, which 9 times out of 10 you will on this attraction. They don't want to get absolutely soaked and have to walk around in your wet jeans for the rest of the day. So that's one reason why it's not popular. And I can hear you saying, that's not true. What about, Splash Mountain? At least those attractions, there's an emotional tie to it. There's a feeling of like, oh, this was fun. I got a lot of bang for my buck. It's a long ride. There's a couple different drops, there's a couple different thrill aspects, so it's completely different. You can't put the two together. So for nostalgia and popularity, we're gonna give this a 1. This ride is certainly not accessible for everyone, unfortunately, just because there is a 38-inch height requirement, but also, if you're in a wheelchair or an ACV, you're gonna have to transfer to the ride vehicle. And if you've ever done a raft ride before at any of the theme parks, it's all kind of the same thing. It is a moving walkway where you have to try and kind of quickly hop into it as it's moving, and the stairs are pretty steep as you're going down. It's not ideal. There is a separate, you can request a separate loading area, so that way it's not a rotating platform for people who need it from an ECV to a wheelchair for that transfer, but it is still kind of a long way down into this tub of doom. You know what I mean? Not super accessible. But I will give it some bonus points for having that separate loading area in case you can't use that moving walkway and hop right in. It's super difficult, I get it. So for accessibility, I'll give it a 3. Finally, it's must-do-ness. I skip this attraction every time. I know a lot of the AllEars teams skip it every time because there's just not enough bang for its buck. It's up one hill, kind of float around for a second, you do one drop, the ride is over. And there are some squirt guns that people who aren't riding the attraction can squirt you with, a little squirt nozzle. They can press a button, you get squirt. There are just other things that would push you to that would be more worth your time, and because time is limited here. So for all those reasons, I'm gonna give it a solid 2. Ooh, off to a rocky start, but that's okay, because remember we're going from 12 to 1. So you can only go uphill from here, literally. Number 11, Rafiki's Planet Watch. But we're really talking about the Wildlife Express, the train to and from. Rafiki Planet Watch isn't really an attraction, it's more of an experience. But scientifically, let's break it down. In order to get to Rafiki's Planet Watch, you have to board a rustic train, and on the train, you'll discover Disney's long-term commitment to animal care and conservation. Scientifically, theming an overall experience. Theming is, well, it looks like exactly what it says it is, an old rustic train. There's baggages and tarps and different things as if you are headed on top of the train, as if you're headed to this destination long term. So the theming is definitely nice, it's rustic, but as you depart the station, that's where things get a little strange. It feels like two different, it feels like it's not a part of Animal Kingdom, because technically, it's behind the scenes of Animal Kingdom, and on the train, that's where you're going to experience a bunch of backstage areas of them taking care of animals. Like you'll see behind Gorilla Falls, and you'll see behind even the safari, the Kilimanjaro Safari, which is super interesting and super unique. You see how they're taking care of them. You see some of their holding areas when they're not out on the savannah. So all of that is definitely very cool. I guess, overall experience theme, and we'll give it a 2. Now the ride vehicle itself is this super long train that has plenty of seating, and it actually has 3 different rows, and it's all facing out of the left side of the train. So that way, all the views that you're seeing are everything that the train wants you to see, like different backstage areas, because I'm sure on the right side of the train are things that they do not want you to see. So it's good to make sure that we're being forced the perspectives that we need to be. But to give the idea of a rickety train, each cart has a different mechanism that makes it kind of rotate forward and backward, and oh, this is indeed a rickety train. So for those extra fun details and elements, it is just a train, but for those fun details and elements, we'll give it a 3. There's really nothing popular about the Wildlife Express or Rafiki's Planet Watch. I mean, people go there from time to time because the animation experience is there. There is a petting zoo, but again, it feels so removed from Animal Kingdom. Even a sign, Rafiki's Planet Watch, that's in Africa. I'm confused. Everything has been so realistic and realism. Why is this happening? So there's not a lot of popularity, and the nostalgia, because it's just a train that takes you from point A to point B with some backstage views, we're gonna give it a 1. However, it is very accessible. It's super family friendly, and it's ECV and wheelchair accessible. But man, I don't know what it is about Disney and these stinking benches that are just uncomfortable. Uncomfortable benches. So with that, giving it a 4. Yes. Benches in your uncomfortable 4. Now, I have only been on this train a handful of times, because once I did Rafiki's Planet Watch and I went on the train, I was like, I don't need to do this again. And really, it's not a must-do. It's cute if you want to go to the petting zoo, and maybe if you're a local and you're here all the time and you're like, wow, I want to. Or let's say you're not a local and you've been to every park and you've got a 5th day and you're like, you know what, I want to see Animal Kingdom from a different side of view. Then yes, absolutely. Then I would say go for it. But overall, is it a must-do? Absolutely not. So for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 2. And now we're hitting our top 10 list. Let's go. Starting at number 10 is Triceratops Spin. Right, we're not doing this. There's no bias involved. It's all scientific. Okay, scientific. Here we go. The theme is really tied into the Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama. Just a quick backstory on that theming, right? Okay, so the Dino Institute was founded. They're finding a bunch of fossils. Researchers were coming from all over, paleontologists were coming from all over, and then Chester and Hester owned a gas station. Was like, wow, there's a lot of business can be made here. So first they had a gift shop, that did really well, and like, let's expand upon that. Let's build a carnival in our parking lot of the gas station and gift shop. So that's what they did, and that is how Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama came to be. Triceratops Spin is literally a Dumbo-style attraction where you hop into like a Triceratops and it just goes up and it spins. I have two big questions. Number one, why is a Triceratops flying in the air? Second question, why is a Triceratops flying in the air? There isn't a lot of theming involved, and overall experience, it is a rather quick ride. You're literally just going in a circle, a couple times, and going up and down. It's very Dumbo style. There's not a lot to it so far. Overall theming, just because they really went in with this backstory, and overall experience, let's give that a 3. The ride vehicle is literally, it looks like Dumbo, except it's a Triceratops, right? It's like a bluish green Triceratops with golden stars around it, because golden stars are magic, and the Triceratops were spinning. They're flying on the golden, I don't know. It's a Triceratops flying in the air. Also, the tech is, it just goes up and down. There are two different levers. One lever that controls if you want to go up or if you want to go down, and one that controls if you want to tilt forward and tilt backwards. So there's a little bit of tech involved, but again, it's super simple. Not a lot happening there. So for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 2. Because it is a carnival style ride, it is not very popular. Of course, it's popular with younger ones and families who need something quick for their young one to do, because I've never seen that attraction, even on busy days, be longer than 15 minutes. But it's just basic dinosaurs. I mean, it's not tied to any specific IP, or even then, it's not even realistic dinosaurs. They're just kind of cartoony dinosaurs. So there's no nostalgia aspect in there. But for some reason, if you love dinosaurs, we'll give it a nostalgia and popularity score of 1. Now, it is pretty accessible. It is accessible for all ages, family friendly. There is no height requirement, but make sure you're with an adult. You will have to transfer if you're in an ECV, but it is pretty accessible. But for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 4. This is not a must-do. I will say, if you have younger ones, I totally get it if you got a family. But if you're deciding between that and anything else, it's not a must-do. I always skip it. But because of the young ones, I will give it over a 2 for must-do-ness. Triceratops Spin, I cannot believe you made it into the top 10. But hey, listen, just good for you. We've still got quite a bit to go through, but Triceratops Spin just making its presence known. Does anyone feel like he's staring directly into my soul? Next up in our top 10, Feathered Friends in Flight. At Feathered Friends in Flight, you can experience the colorful world of exotic birds in this 25-minute show, where you can learn about these incredible birds, but also see some cool tricks along the way. Now, this is the 3rd incarnation of this, bird show happening in Asia. The original show, I believe, was Flights of Wonder, something around like that. And then they tried to put the Up intellectual property in there to try and make it a little Disney. And that didn't go well either for some reason. But now they have Feathers in Flight, which is, I believe, to be the best incarnation because it focuses on the thing that we're all here to see, the birds, right? It really highlights the birds, and the birds become the star of the show. The theming is nice because it really ties in with the land that it's in, Asia. It takes place in the Anandapur Theater, and the Anandapur Theater looks to be like this kind of slowly deteriorating old antique theater that they have found, and it's covered in wildlife, and so they've decided to invite people into this theater to see the magic of these exotic birds. The theming is great, it plays well, and as far as the overall experience, I think because they made the birds the star of the show, they really they hit a home run based on the other 2 incarnations of the show that came before them. Plus, some of the tricks that these birds are doing, and the knowledge that you gain from this, as well as there are a few birds that I had never seen before. It's oh, I've never seen a bird do that, or I've never seen that bird before in general. So that's really interesting. So for theming and overall experience, I have to give this a 4. Now, because it's a show, there is no ride system. We'll talk about tech. There's also no tech. I mean, there is. When I say tech, it really is just basic sound and basic lighting. Again, I cannot preface this enough. The star of the show is the birds. You're really putting the birds front and center. They're not trying to hide it among this like special effects or whatever. I feel bad rating it low because that's just not what the show is about. But there's not a lot of tech involved. So for this, I'll say, because they do have a little bit of lighting and sound, I'll say 1. Unfortunately, there's not really nostalgia part of the show because it's not tied to intellectual property. It is kind of a fun learning experience where you'll also get to see some birds do some really interesting things. Nothing about this that's going to make you feel the warm and fuzzies other than the, wow, this is amazing. Not a lot of nostalgia involved, but it is still a great show. I'm going to give that probably a 2. It is a very accessible show. It is family friendly, unless you hate birds. It is family friendly. It is wheelchair, ECV accessible, all the above. However, these benches, why? And it is so, because there's these hard benches again, gonna have to take down a point again. So for accessibility, 4. Finally, must-do-ness. While I think it is the best incarnation of the bird show that happens at the Anandapur Theater, I do skip it quite a lot because it's a 25-minute show, it's a time suck, and it's one of those things that, like, once you've seen it, you've seen it. It's not a huge repeatability factor there unless you love birds, you know what I mean? So definitely get it. If you haven't done it yet, absolutely do it. But is it a must-do? Probably not. So for must-do-ness, I'm gonna give it a 2. I'm sorry, birds. Please forgive me. I just have this image, all of a sudden, like the bird just swoop over me, and I just like. Here we are, number 8, Navi River Journey. On this attraction, you're going to journey deep into a bioluminescent rainforest in search of the Navi shaman of song. Let's break this down scientifically. Category number 1, theming and overall experience. Now, I cannot say enough about the theming in Pandora. Just as a whole, the theming is gorgeous. So many details, but from the sounds to the interactive sets to just the Foley, everything. It is absolutely spot on, the theming in general. But on the actual attraction itself, it is a slow moving boat ride that takes you through this this jungle on Pandora, and everything is bioluminescent. With that being said, nothing happens. So what happened then? What happened? Because the theming is so spot on, which I think that's what that ride is just one big themed boat ride, but like where nothing ever happens. I'll give it a 3. I'll give that a 3. Now let's talk about the ride vehicle and the tech. The ride vehicle is almost this like basket weaved Navi gift. It is still just a boat. Nothing special happens with it, but it is themed really well. But the tech is phenomenal. Just how they create these different creatures, and if you can see it, like there's not an actual waterfall there. What they've done is like it's a projection of a waterfall, but then they have air pumps shooting up to make it look like the splash. It's like really ingenious stuff. But really, the big tech thing we've got to talk about is the shaman of song. It's one of the most advanced animatronics we have right now. The fluidity, it's so big. Even though the shaman is friendly, it still freaks me out from time to time because it is just looming. It is like she is there, you know what I mean? But it is absolutely gorgeous. But because the ride vehicle is just a boat, but the tech is pretty solid. The reason to go see it is the shaman of song. We'll give that a 3 as well. This is not a very nostalgic attraction unless you have this huge emotional pull with Avatar. Also, nothing happens on the attraction other than like seeing plant life and things like that. You know, so it's not like, oh wow, that made me feel something, or I can't wait to go back to see these different characters. So it's not very nostalgic. We'll give it a 2. And this is pretty accessible for everybody. It is family friendly. It is wheelchair accessible. There is no height requirement. It is not the height of luxury seating, I'll say that, but it's accessible for everybody. For those reasons, I'll give it a 4. And must-do-ness, it is not a must-do for me, just because while it might be beautiful and there might be a really cool animatronic at the end, waiting 30 minutes to go through a 5-minute boat ride that I'm just like, oh, okay, so that was pretty, but like what happened? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me to to put my time and energy into that. So for those reasons, I'm gonna give it a 2. Okay, here we go. Not bad. We're nailing this. Keep on trucking down the list. Number 7, it's tough to be a bug. What? I'm impressed. We're like halfway through. All right, not bad. Not bad. Flick. On It's Tough to Be a Bug, you can become an honorary bug in this 3D show inspired by Pixar's A Bug's Life. Now, it is a 3D show, but there are some moments that could be too intense for young audience members, so know that before you go. But let's break this down scientifically. First things first, let's get into theming and overall experience. Now, theming, it literally takes place inside the Tree of Life, and the Tree of Life is the park's icon. It has over 300 hands, like sculpted carvings of different animals all throughout the Tree of Life. It is really unique and exciting, as well as they do Tree of Life Awakening at nighttime. So it is really the central icon, and the fact that it has a show inside of it, and it's tough to be a bug, I just think it's kind of cool to be inside of it, you know what I mean? Now, the Tree of Life is not It's Tough to Be a Bug. I know those are two separate things. But the cue, you are still walking through the Tree of Life, and you feel yourself kind of shrinking as the roots and trees get taller, and you start to see some of the animal carvings a little closer, and you're like, wow, I'm actively getting smaller, until you're underneath the Tree of Life. At that point, that's where you're gonna see these really, fun bug cabaret posters like Beauty and the Bee and Auntie, which obviously is a take on Beauty and the Beast and Annie, starting to give little subtle nods that, okay, I'm here to see a bug cabaret. Inside the theater, it feels like the tree has been hollowed out, but everything that you're sitting on, like the benches and the walls around you, it was carved out just to make way for this bug cabaret. And while it may be too intense for children, the overall experience is really fun and unique and kind of terrifying. I'm a fan of it. Theming, overall, I'll give it a 4. Now, there's no ride system because it is a show, but as far as the tech goes, there are some interesting tech things that happen here. For example, this larger-than-life Hopper. Hopper is the antagonist. He's the bad guy in It's a Bug's Life. And man, he is looming, and he is big, and he moves, he's fluid, and he jumps right out of the screen. As far as some of the other tech that's involved, there's some, I don't want to give you spoiler alerts, but there are some things that happen within the bench that you're sitting on that are kind of terrifying, but also like, oh, didn't know that was gonna happen. But some of the tech is a little dated. For example, the 3D is not awesome. It definitely could be updated. All in all, for those reasons, I'll give tech a 3. Now, this is not a nostalgic ride whatsoever, unless you grew up with Bug's Life. You're like, I love Bug's Life, but they don't even have the music from Bug's Life. They do have a great finale song that I know we all love. It's tough to be a bug. Like, we love that song. But there's nothing super nostalgic about it because it's not a retelling. It's basically the cast of A Bug's Life is putting on a cabaret for you. It's also not super popular. It is a people eater. It's a great way to funnel people into a theater for a little bit and to, sit down and see kind of like a fun, also slightly terrifying show for a little bit. So it's not super popular either. So for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 2. Because it is a theater atmosphere, it is pretty accessible, and it's supposed to be family friendly. Now, it's like, again, putting the warning out there. There are some moments that might be a little too intense, but it is supposed to be family friendly. There's not really a height requirement, if you will. And it's wheelchair accessible, you see all that jazz. However, they have these really hard kind of like benches that aren't super comfortable. And every time there's a hard bench that's not comfortable in a theater setting, I immediately take away a point. So accessibility, I'm gonna give it a 4. And finally, must-do-ness. It is not necessarily a must-do for me, but if I get a chance to with new people, I always want to take them to it because it's so fun, because it's never truly what they expect. So I'm really probably gonna go middle of the road here. It is a fun take on a 3D, 4D Disney show. Do have some really cool special effects, but it is certainly not the feel-good Bug's Life we're all looking for. So for those reasons, I'm gonna give it a 3. Okay, coming in at number 6, Finding Nemo, the musical. #Live entertainment is important. At Finding Nemo the Musical, you can dive into the big blue and beyond in this 25-minute musical extravaganza. With Broadway caliber talent and production, it's definitely going to tug at the heartstrings, and you'll be singing the tunes for the rest of the day. This is truly the most Broadway, like proscenium style show you're going to see probably throughout all of Walt Disney World. The music is written by Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez, who also wrote Book of Mormon, Avenue Q, Frozen, Frozen 2, Coco. I mean, they have quite the history. Now, if you visited the parks before the pandemic, there was definitely a little bit of a different show here. It used to be a 35 to 40 minute show, but after its reopening, they shortened down the show to 25 minutes to make it less of a time suck for everybody. There are also less cast members in the show, and now that there are less cast members, but they're still doing the exact same amount of work, woo, they are running around that stage. Don't worry, it's all the same songs that you still love and appreciate from before, like In the Big Blue World, Go With the Flow, Just Keep Swimming, all of them. Since the show's update, the theme is interesting. Well, the theater looks like a proscenium-style theater. The waves throughout the set pieces and the kind of first facade that you see that's kind of projecting like little fish as it goes across. There are bubbles. That part is still the same. But as the show progresses, you start to see things like the set pieces and the projections on the big screen now. They're intentionally 2D, and everything kind of folds open, almost like origami. It's a really interesting theme to take for Finding Nemo that is typically based in realism. So that part was interesting to me. Something about it just like doesn't quite mesh, but obviously it's still a great show, which leads me to overall experience. The cast is amazing. The vocals are great. The songs are so good. I really enjoy it every time I go and see it. It really pulls at the heartstrings, especially for families and fathers. And it really does a nice job of beautiful storytelling. So for overall experience, I would rate it super high, but because it's in the same category as theming, which I'm like kind of confused about, I got to take it down. So we'll give that a 3. Because this is a show, there is no ride system, but there is a great tech element to this. Yes, while it is no technical feat like Fantasmic, it's still Broadway caliber lighting, sound design, and set pieces. Huge video wall at the back of the stage that kind of tells the story and creates a lot of depth for the stage itself. So because of the Broadway caliber production values, as well as the amazing puppetry work, which I will include in tech because there's still a lot of tech involved there, I'm gonna give that a 4. Yeah. Now, nostalgia and popularity, it's a little bit like middle of the road. These songs are really iconic, and In the Big Blue World, it happens several places here at Disney World. Here Finding Nemo, and also here it happens in Epcot at the Seas with Nemo and Friends. The songs bring a lot of nostalgia just to the story and to the parks as well, if you've been around Animal Kingdom for a long time. And also, if you love Finding Nemo, there's a lot of nostalgia involved there when it comes to the family ties that they all share. And it is a pretty popular show. It's not too popular during normal times. You can always find a seat. However, during high peak seasons, I recommend getting to the theater at least 30 to 45 minutes in advance if you want a seat. So for nostalgia and popularity, let's give that a 3. Because it is a theater setting, this is extremely accessible for everyone. It is family friendly, it is wheelchair, it is ECV accessible. However, I always got to throw it out there, man, these benches that they put in these theaters, it's like this weird wooden bench with these like little lines. It's not comfortable at all, which immediately makes it not accessible for people who have sensitive tushes. It's a thing. So I'm taking off a point. Accessibility is a 4. Now, while I might love Finding Nemo the musical, I do understand it can be a little bit of a time suck. Probably all in all, you're going to spend maybe an hour and 5 minutes with waiting 30 minutes, beforehand for the pre-show to get a seat, all that kind of stuff, as well as the 25-minute show itself. So I understand it can be a little bit of a time suck, but it is just beautiful storytelling, great talent, and I highly recommend it. So, pulls out the heartstrings 1,000%. So for those reasons, because it's a great show, but also can be a time suck, which I understand, I'm gonna give it a 3. You know what part always makes me cry though? Is right at the very end, man. Right at the very end. It's like, go have an adventure. And then like there's like in the big blue world, and then they're going off, and it's just, and then Nemo looks back and goes, bye, Dad. And Marlin goes, goodbye, son. And then he looks out, he goes, oh, blackout. We've officially made it to our top 5, and this is well, on Exposition Everest, you board a T-train and you zoom through the mountains while you narrowly escape a vicious Yeti. It is currently the only coaster attraction here at Animal Kingdom. You've got high-speed turns, big drops, and, well, going backwards in utter darkness. Let's get into it. Now, the theming and overall experience of the ride is pretty impressive. The theming specifically, both outside of the ride, in the queue, and kind of on the attraction, all of it is pretty impressive. Joe Rohde and the Imagineers did a really great job of putting some realistic vibes here in Asia. Like from the prayer flags above to really having an in-depth backstory regarding Expedition Everest, which is Bob and Norbu, who own Himalayan Escapes, which is a tourism company. It kind of reconfigured this T-train to take people to Everest, and that's how Expedition Everest was born. But in order, they cut some corners, and in order to get to Everest, they have to take the T-train through Forbidden Mountain, which that's home to the legend of a vicious Yeti, which things don't necessarily go to plan. For theming and overall experience, I'm gonna say 4. Now, the ride system is supposed to be a restored T-train that is taking you through the mountains, and it's a typical coaster ride, so it's just a lap bar. You're not going upside down or anything. It's not one of these bad boys. So you're just yeah, it's a typical cart look that looks like it almost has like a resemblance of like a big Thunder Mountain. It's got the big engine in the back, you know what I mean? Except it's not, except the front of it is not like an actual train, like a chugga choo-choo train. And there used to be a lot of tech involved. There is one really cool thing that happens where you think the track is out, and spoiler alert, but the entire ride vehicle ends up going backwards into complete darkness. It's a lot of fun and super thrilling. But there used to be a lot of tech involved because there is this huge life-size, like looming, larger-than-life Yeti. Fortunately, the Yeti is still in B mode, and it will probably be in B mode forever and ever. Now, A mode was where the Yeti would actually move, and he would swipe down at you, and he was well lit, and he was a full-on animatronic. However, the Yeti was so big and so massive, every time he moved, he was actually damaging the infrastructure, like all of the steel, like it was, the entire building was like, oh no, this is not good. So they put it into B mode, otherwise known as Disco Yeti mode, which they blow lots of wind, they do strobe lights to simulate movement, even though he's not really moving. It is still terrifying though. There's nothing like a beast and a strobe light to like make you go, well, that is not what I want for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But I've got to give it some bonus points because of that backwards drop. So overall for ride and tech, I'm going to give it a 3. There's not a lot of nostalgia happening here. It's not tied to any particular IP. However, if you love the Disney parks, you know, and you've been coming to Animal Kingdom for a while, there might be some nostalgia there, but for the most part, it's not pulling on any heartstrings. You're not equating it back. There's no emotional through line or anything like that. There's not a lot of nostalgia other than, I remember this ride from 5 years ago and I loved it, you know what I mean? But it is a pretty popular ride. I mean, it's the only coaster attraction here at Animal Kingdom, so lines can get pretty busy. So for nostalgia and overall popularity, we're gonna give it a 3. Now, there is a height requirement. It is 44 inches. You have to be 44 inches in order to ride. You also have to transfer from an ECV to or a wheelchair into the actual ride vehicle itself. It can be pretty scary for kids, so it is kind of middle of the road accessible, you know what I mean? So for those reasons, I'm gonna give it a 3. And for must-do-ness, this is definitely a must-do attraction. It's thrilling, the adrenaline is there, the theming is there. It's really, really a solid attraction. However, I do know, because it is a roller coaster, not everybody is into roller coasters, and there are some limitations. So for those reasons, I'm gonna give its overall must-do-ness a 4. Okay, we're almost to our top 3, which leads us to number 4, a personal favorite of mine, Festival of the Lion King. At Festival of the Lion King, you can join Simba and his friends in this 30-minute musical celebration that celebrates the music and the culture of the Disney classic, The Lion King. Now, Festival of the Lion King is a true celebration. It's not a retelling in any way. It features singers, dancers, tumblers, aerialists, fire dancers, just the works. And it goes to some of your favorite songs as well, like The Circle of Life, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, Be Prepared, Hakuna Matata. It's just everything you love about The Lion King all in one, like, neat package. Now, theming-wise, it's just a theatrical setting. It's circling around, so the performance happens in the middle of the theater, and the audience is seated completely on the outside of the theater. And it feels just like a barren theater, you know, like with like curtains and things like that, until the celebration begins, and then it's just filled with like this, with different stages and different like almost parade floats that house these different animals and puppets and things like that, and it becomes this whole I guess festival of liking. There we go. So for theming and overall experience, we're gonna give it a 4. Because it's a theatrical setting, there's not a ride vehicle. However, there are a couple parade floats that happen inside this theater, as well as these huge giant puppets. And yes, because it is a theater, there is still you know, production lighting and production sound, things like that. But let's talk about these parade floats for a second. Each parade float holds a different kind of animal and theme. You have the giraffes, you've got the elephants, you've got Simba, and you've got Pumbaa, as well as this floating stage that comes to the center. That's where all the main performances happen. And if you ever get a second, if you're not interested in the action that's happening in the center, watch one of these puppets, watch one of these animals, because they each have their own personality and they're reacting to the things that are happening. It's a lot of fun. So definitely, because of that, we're gonna give the tech a 3. Nostalgia and popularity. How is the music from The Lion King not nostalgic? I mean, The Lion King is a classic. It's still part of the Disney Renaissance era, and it is a pretty popular show just because it is a fan favorite. With that being said, during the normal times, I have always been able to grab a seat. But during high capacity times, please, if you want to get a seat, make sure to show up 30 to 45 minutes in advance if you want to get a good seat. But because it's pure nostalgia and the popularity is there, we're going to give that a 4. It is family friendly. It's accessible for everybody. It's wheelchair, ECV, differently abled friendly, all the above. However, these metal benches, what is the deal with, can I just get some theater seating, please? Like, oh, you know what I gotta do? These metal seats, you gotta take away a point. Now accessibility is a 4. That's what you get. That's what you get. You didn't give me the right seat, so now you get a 4 now, because it's not accessible to my tissue. Finally, must-do-ness. It is a 30-minute show. It is a little bit of a time suck. If you're there during busy season, you got to show up, you know, really early to even get a seat. That's an hour and 15 minutes out of your day. However, it is a great show. Amazing performances. The repeatability factor is there too, because each singer kind of brings their own flavor to it. So, you know, specifically Zawadi, who sings Circle of Life, the singer who sings that just always adds a little, like, of their own, like, come on, like, let's go. You know, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's just like their own riffs, and they're just how they bring to the table. Each one of the singers, so there is different. So the repeatability factor is definitely there for me. And I always tell people this is a must-do. So for those but I guess the time suck. So for those reasons, I'm gonna give it a 3. Oh wait, are we in our top 3 now? Okay, we're our top 3. Wrapping it up. We have made it to our top 3. Top 3. Okay, best attractions in all of Animal Kingdom. Top 3, here we go. Number 3, Dinosaur. Meow. Rawr, I don't know what they do. Now on Dinosaur, you can take a rip-roaring tour through the prehistoric times to save a dinosaur from extinction. Now you're supposed to be just going on a nice and easy tour through the early Cretaceous period, but Dr. Seeker paleontologist, has some plans of his own. He wants to go to the late Cretaceous period to bring back this guy, an iguanodon, back to the future for, I don't know, studying purposes. It is definitely a little bit of a terrifying ride in a fun, thrilling way. Definitely loud noises. You're in the dark maybe 90% of the time, but hashtag worth it. The theming, this whole land is kind of tied together with this Chester and Hester Dino Institute, kind of interesting backstory. But this section of the land is Dino Institute. This is kind of the core structure of what it's all based around. The Dino Institute really serves as an institute. It looks like a museum. There are even actual fossils from that were donated by different organizations inside the queue. So it's actually a real museum, real fossils inside there. However, on the actual attraction, it is full-on prehistoric, dark prehistoric. And when I say dark prehistoric, we can talk about the overall experience is that it is actually pretty scary. I mean, the amount of times dinosaurs are popping out at you, or literally chasing after you, or roaring in your face, making this crazy loud noises, and from out of nowhere, because it's pitch black, and then all of a sudden there's a dinosaur. So it is actually one of my favorite attractions. It's extremely thrilling here at Animal Kingdom. There are not a lot of thrill attractions, in Walt Disney property as a whole, compared to other parks. There's a lot of, family-friendly things, but there's a limited number of thrill attractions for thrill seekers. So this is definitely it. So as far as overall experience goes, I would rate it pretty high, but because it is in the dark a lot of the time, which takes away from some of the theming, I'll knock it down a point. So for overall experience of theming, we'll give it a 4. Now the ride system is kind of a copy and paste from a Disneyland friend of ours, the Indiana Jones attraction. The exact same ride vehicle, it's the same track, same twists and turns, just different scenes and things that are happening around you. With that being said, it is a little dated and things break down all the time. In fact, some dinosaur animatronics have just been turned off in just like statue mode, so that way they don't have to keep fixing it. And also they did that for a few of them because it was actually too scary for kids. But there are full life-size dinosaur animatronics in here. At one point, a dinosaur even chases after you, which is a pretty cool thing to see and happen. But it is dated, it does break down a lot, so for those reasons, I'm gonna give it a 3. Now, even though this attraction isn't tied to a specific IP, okay, you're gonna say that it is, but is it really? Like, they tried to attach it to the dinosaur, the dinosaur movie that came out, that didn't do very well. But it's not really tied to it. There are no actual references in it, except for maybe one 3-second clip when Dr. Seeker just says, a dinosaur. So for those reasons, it's not super nostalgic. However, it is very nostalgic because this is like OG Animal Kingdom. If you've been to the parks, I mean, I rode this when I was a kid, and it is a pretty popular ride. It is not as popular as you would think, based on like how I'm describing it, being like, it's thrilling, it's amazing. That's because it's kind of hidden in the back of the park. It's literally like surrounded by vegetation, and not a lot of people can find it because it is hidden all the way in the back of Dinoland USA. So because it is pretty park nostalgic and pretty popular because people usually really want to ride it, I'm thinking about a 4 for nostalgic and for park nostalgia and popularity. 4 makes sense to me. This is not super accessible for everyone. There are some limitations because it does jostle you around quite a bit. If you're in a wheelchair, you will have to transfer. Also, there's a 40-inch height requirement, but still, it's not super family friendly. Dark, loud, scary noises. You're gonna be thrown around like nobody's business. Because you're in the dark and you're being thrown around, you don't really have control of your body because you're not quite sure like how to prepare your body for the turn. You know what I'm saying? So there are some physical limitations for that. So because it's not that accessible, I'm gonna say a 2. When it comes to Animal Kingdom, this is a must-do attraction. This is an old school Animal Kingdom ride. A great thrill factor, great adrenaline, great storytelling, lots of fun, and you're not gonna find anything I think as terrifying on Walt Disney World property as this, right? Just like as a fun thing that happened, like, okay, that was a lot. So for those reasons, 5 out of 5. You must do. I always tell people when you come to this park, you've got to do Dinosaur. Make it happen. There are only 2 more attractions left, and which one is going to be the runner-up? The runner-up to the best attraction in all of Animal Kingdom. What's it going to be? It's Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage came in number 2. Number 2. Interesting. On Flight of Passage, you can hop on the back of a Banshee and fly over all of Pandora's beautiful scenescapes in this 3D immersive attraction. So let's break this down scientifically then. We'll talk about theming and overall experience. The theming is out of this world, literally. I mean, we're talking Star Wars Galaxy's Edge type detail. And what's great is that the queue really reflects everything, like the line that you're in reflects everything that Pandora stands for. Like, you've got the beautiful atmosphere, you've got the floating rocks above you, you've got the foliage, you've got the sound effects, and then you enter the sciencey part of it, where the RDA, who were the bad guys, they kind of, how they kind of took over, and how the Avatar program works, and the conservation of Pandora. It's pretty ridiculous. But more than that, they have 2 different looks, right? Remember? So Pandora has 2 different looks. They have the daytime look and the nighttime look. The daytime is this otherworldly, rainforesty kind of situation, and then the nighttime look is this bioluminescent, really alien-like look. It's pretty incredible. The overall experience on the actual attraction, I'd be lying to you if I told you that I didn't shed a tear on the first time I rode this attraction. The score and the imagery, and I'll get to the tech in a second, but how you really feel like you're on this creature from another world is kind of mind-boggling. So for theming and overall experience, 5 out of 5, hands down. Now, the ride system and tech are really integral and intentional regarding Flight of Passage. Specifically, the bike you mount. Yes, if we're talking about overall things, yes, I'm fully aware that it is just a screen, right? It's a huge screen similar to Soaring Around the World at Epcot. It's a giant screen. But what sets this above and beyond is you are seated in this bike position to really give the idea that you're on top of this Banshee. And spoiler alert, you can actually feel the Banshee breathe. Its lungs fill up and retract. It's kind of mind-boggling, and just the movement of it is so fluid because it's your seat. It's not your seat that moves. It's actually the entire floor. It's the entire the entire floor you're on, because there are several different stories. The entire story that you're on actually goes up and down. It is insanity, and it is really, really cool. The sense and the water and everything that you're feeling. So, but because it's a screen, I'll take away a point. But I am 9 times out of 10, I'm genuinely impressed with the ride and tech, so we give it a 4. Now, there's nothing super nostalgic about this ride because it is one of the newer attractions. I can't say that it's park nostalgic. I can give it a point, for if you really love Avatar, if this Avatar is your thing. Yeah, it's totally nostalgic. You feel like you're in the world of Pandora, so that part is, but really the reason I'm giving the most points is because its popularity. It is insanely popular. It is the most popular ride here at Disney's Animal Kingdom. I just walked by it, and it was a 130-minute wait. I mean, people want to ride this attraction. It's not super nostalgic, but because it's really, really popular, we'll give that a 4. Now, here's where we get into some issues with Flight of Passage, which is probably why it kind of went down on this scale, is the accessibility. It is not super accessible for everybody. For example, it's a 44-inch height requirement, which is pretty tall. It's not. It is family friendly. There's not. There's some intense moments, but it's definitely not I would not feel nervous about taking a child to it. The biggest issue is the accessibility regarding differently abled. So it's, in order for you to do this, you would have to transfer from an ECB to a wheelchair, and then you have to transfer to a wheelchair to this seated bike position. They even have the seated bike position outside of the ride to make sure, as a differently abled person, you're even able to get onto the bike and be in that position. And then the back plate pull, kind of locks you in position, which is also not perfect for plus size people as well. So it is definitely not super accessible for everyone. With that being said, that's why we are giving it a 2 on accessibility. Finally, for must-do-ness, there's no way I can rate it any other way. 5 out of 5. It is such a unique attraction. All of the tech aspects, when they combine, create this beautiful imagery masterpiece with everything. It's gorgeous. If you can swing it, you're definitely gonna have to use your lightning lane reservation on this, or you're gonna have to have a solid rope drop strategy. For that, you can check out our Animal Kingdom Genie Plus Challenge, where Emma, Quincy, and I decided what was the best way to really handle Animal Kingdom. And I'm pretty sure I won. But Flight of Passage, 5 out of 5. Whew, okay. The number 1 top-rated attraction, scientifically, of course, here in Africa, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. If you can't, I'll just say it out loud. Here we go. 1, 2, I'll say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Kilimanjaro Safari. See? Same wavelength. But of course, are you surprised? I'm a little surprised, but not that surprised when I think about it. So let's break it down. On Kilimanjaro Safari, you can take a tour through a lush African savanna to search for giraffes, zebra, lion, and so many more. Now, when it comes to Animal Kingdom, Kilimanjaro Safari is like the attraction. It's probably why most of this park exists. Like, you're here to see animals, Animal Kingdom, and this is the number 1 place that you can see probably the most animals in their as natural as it can be habitats. Now, the theming, as you can tell, this is kind of an overall theme amongst all of Animal Kingdom now that I'm thinking about it, bringing it down. But it's another tourism situation. A tourism company is inviting you to go on a tour through Africa's savanna and different scenescapes throughout Africa. Now, the history of this ride is kind of fascinating because when it first opened, there was almost a thrill ride aspect to it. At one point, you would go over this bridge that was kind of rickety, and it would actually kind of shake and fall a little bit underneath you. And also, you had a full high-speed chase with poachers where they kidnapped a baby elephant, literally saw this Jeep come barreling towards you, and you're trying to get away from it, but you're trying to get to the elephant at the same time. It was crazy. However, this is more of a relaxed themed experience where really the animals are the star of the show. Here's a pro tip. If you want to see as many animals as you can, try and sit on the left side of the vehicle because 70 to 75% of the animals and the action is happening on the left-hand side. But it is a fantastic overall experience. You're there to see animals, you see a bunch of animals, and you see a variety in different forms and in different areas. It's really fascinating. So overall experience and theming, we're gonna give it 5. A ride system and tech. There's not a lot of tech involved because it is really, again, the star is the animal, so it's the animals. So there's not a lot of tech involved. However, the ride vehicle is this kind of part Jeep, part bus. It's as large as a bus, but there are no windows or any side paneling or anything like that. Obviously there are doors, but there's no above side paneling. So you've got a full 360-degree view completely around you that you can look at all the different animals and all of the different wildlife things that are happening around you, which is perfect for safari viewing. So for tech, which there's not a lot of, but mostly ride vehicle helpfulness, we'll give it a 3. Not only is this ride super popular, it's also pretty nostalgic, just based on the fact that this is OG Animal Kingdom. If you've ever been to, it's park nostalgia. If you've ever been to Animal Kingdom before, I'm 80 to 90% sure you've done the Kilimanjaro Safari, because that's really where you're gonna see most of the animals. You're coming to Animal Kingdom here to see some animals. It's even nostalgic because you might see the same baobab trees or the same ostrich eggs that have been there since it opened. When are those eggs gonna hatch? But it is a really popular ride, not as popular as Flight of Passage because people want the thrill in their lives, but it is pretty popular. So for popularity and nostalgia factors, we're gonna give it a 4. It's also very accessible for everyone. It is extremely family friendly. there's really nothing scary about it at all, unless you're terrified of a specific animal and it gets kind of close to you. Like, really, it's great for family friendly. And the only thing that's different is that if you're in an ECV, you're gonna have to transfer to a wheelchair, but it is wheelchair accessible. And surprisingly, for a 20 to 25 minute kind of attraction, the benches are are surprisingly comfortable. So all around, I'm not mad at it. I'll give it a 4 for accessibility. Absolutely, for must-do-ness, I have to give it a 5 out of 5. It's Animal Kingdom. You're gonna see so many different kind of animals. A pro tip, if you wanna see animals as active as they can be, go first thing in the morning or later on in the evening when you start to get those cooler temperatures. In the middle of the day, they're hot, they're exhausted, they're probably napping. So aim for the left side of the vehicle, but also early on in the day or later on in the evening. When you think of Animal Kingdom, you think of the safari. So it's hard not to make this the #1 must-do, 5 out of 5. Congratulations, Kilimanjaro Safari. You won. You did it. I'm proud of you. We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. You did it. I'm pretty sure we nailed that. I feel solid about the rankings. Again, I tried to be as not biased as possible. We did it by category. I'm sure a little biased opinion snuck in from time to time, but that's okay. Everybody's human, except for the Navi from Pandora. They're not human. They probably don't make these mistakes. But overall, I'm pleased with the ranking. I liked the way that the top 3 flushed out, and that was the thing that I was most worried about. Thanks for getting sciencey with me. I hope this was helpful.